a district that is all white. I want to have African Americans. I want to have to build coalitions.
Right, so it's the opposite side of what Stacey is.
So, a question for all of you. We now have 3 wonderful women on the Supreme Court. Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ruth Ginsburg. Have any of you seen any effect of having 3 women on the court? Obviously, they're very strong spokespeople for their feminist views, but has the character of the court changed at all? Has the nature of the conversation shifted at all? Any discernible impact by having 3 women?
So I feel like I sense in your tone the same wistful feeling I have about this. I've asked Justice Ginsburg about this twice now, kind of dying for her to say, yeah, it's different. It's like a sisterhood, and we all hang out, and the whole conversational dynamic has changed in conference. She doesn't say that at all. She talks about the power of symbolism and how important it is for people to see the picture of all 9 of them and see 3 people. And this is partly, I think, about being, growing up in the 1970s feminist movement, in which that was such a crucial accomplishment and value, and it obviously, I think, still is important. And then I also wonder if maybe it's just harder to talk about how the dynamics shift internally in a way that doesn't give away confidences about how the court operates. But I really don't think she sees it that way, and I wonder what you think.
Well, I did a piece in the New Yorker, gosh, it's probably close to 10, maybe even about 10 years ago, where I sort of took this hypothesis of, there was some scholarship, I'm forgetting, the woman who wrote an article in the University of Minnesota Law Review saying women judges are different, and they're like nicer, and they're like more liberal. I said, okay, what state has had the biggest influx of women judges, biggest change? Texas. Texas has a lot of women judges. A more right-wing, death penalty happy group you will never meet. And I interviewed a bunch of these judges, and they were led by Sharon Keller, who's the chief judge of the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, who famously, at 5 o'clock one day, a guy was trying to get a stay of execution. It was 10 after 5. She's like, sorry, this door is closed. I mean, just crazy. I mean, like beyond right wing. So, the idea that there is some difference inherently between male judges and women judges, at least is not borne out by the facts that I'm aware of.
But don't you think they must conference differently? It must change the dynamic of how they talk to each other?
Well, certainly, I've heard Justice O'Connor say, and I've felt this, is that, as people who go to the Supreme Court regularly, I mean, you just go to the Supreme Court and you see Kagan over here, Sotomayor over there, Ginsburg towards the middle. I mean, it's very striking. It's very different from how it used to look. And O'Connor says, when I walk into the court, it's like, I love it. I look at all these women up there. And that's true, but thus what? I don't know.
Well, there are differences and there are similarities, right? So, like, the differences are, there are some studies that say that, unsurprisingly, women tend to be harder on deadbeat dads or with respect to criminal procedure issues than men are, just statistically.
On the bench, you mean?
On the bench, yeah. These are of judges. But this is what Sotomayor got in trouble for when she gave her wise Latina comment, right? And I think it's really dangerous for us to essentialize women in this way. And I'm much more happy less about the differences than about the similarities, among the justices. So I was recently at one of the conversations that Emily was having with Justice Ginsburg, and Justice Ginsburg said, when there are only 2 of us, Justice O'Connor and she, people used to confuse them all the time.
From the audience.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Like the lawyers.
Litigants would say Justice O'Connor to Justice Ginsburg and Justice Ginsburg to Justice O'Connor. Two women who look more different you could not hope to find, right?
Interesting.
So one organization got them T-shirts that said, one of them said, I'm Sandra, not Ruth, and the other one said, I'm Ruth, not Sandra. And Ginsburg said the best thing about this current court and having 3 women on the court is that nobody makes that mistake anymore, because it's just, you would no more confuse those 2 than you would confuse any of the men. And so, and in fact, it's probably less likely that they get confused than the men get confused. And she thought of that as a very positive thing, right? So rather than saying, feminism has triumphed when a different voice has been brought to the court. I would say, this is just my gut speaking, feminism has triumphed because it's business as usual as a court, and nobody bats an eye at the fact that there are women in these positions of power. As a coda, I should say that Ginsburg was asked in public, how many justices would she want who were women before she felt like there was enough. And she said 9. Yeah.
She loves the Supreme Court of Canada.
And when someone said, isn't that a little unreasonable, she was like, well, was it unreasonable for them to have had 9 men all the way up to Justice O'Connor? So if we're talking about the arc of history, in order to balance out the historical numbers, that's what we would have to have.